Jack smiled, the first real smile of the night. He reached out and took her hand. For a moment, the cruise ship, the Spanish lessons, and the crazy landlords faded away. There was just the two of them, the quiet of the morning, and the realization that sometimes the best role to play was yourself. Outside, the Santa Monica sun began to rise again, bright and unapologetic, ready for another day of comedy, kisses, and the beautiful, messy business of being alive. Chapter 7. The Ghost of Austin. The days following the great cowboy deception were quiet, but the air in apartment 201 remained charged. Every time Jack caught Janet's eye, he saw a flicker of something he couldn't quite name, a softness that wasn't there before, or perhaps a curiosity about the man who could summon a Texas rancher out of thin air. But life in Santa Monica didn't wait for romantic epiphanies. Jack's Spanish textbook was back on the table, though now it was stained with tomato sauce. The cruise ship job wasn't just a dream anymore. He had an interview at La Casa del Sol, a high-end Spanish restaurant where the owner was a consultant for the cruise line. Trágame una botella de vino tinto, Jack practiced, his voice lackluster. You sound like you're ordering an execution, Jack, Cindy said, pirouetting through the living room with a stack of files. Lighten up. Be more Austin-y. Jack winced. Austin is retired, Cindy. He's back in the panhandle, hopefully being eaten by a coyote. I don't know, Janet said, entering from the balcony with a basket of wilting ferns. Austin had a certain charm. He knew what he wanted. He wasn't afraid to kiss a lady's hand. Jack looked at her sharply. Is that what you want, Janet? A guy in a hat who kisses hands and talks about toad frogs? Janet set the basket down and wiped her hands on her apron. Maybe I just want a guy who isn't always apologizing for being himself. The phone rang, cutting through the tension. Jack lunged for it. Hello? Yes, this is Jack Tripper. Tomorrow at noon? Absolute. Unsurpassed, sir. My cooking is unsurpassed. Yes, thank you. He hung up, his face pale. The interview is tomorrow. If I get this, I'm one step closer to that ship. Janet's smile didn't reach her eyes. That's wonderful, Jack. Really. We should celebrate tonight. The Regal Beagle? Cindy suggested. The Regal Beagle. Janet agreed, though her voice sounded far away. Chapter 8. Neon Lights and Liquid Courage. The Regal Beagle was a local institution, a dim, wood-paneled pub where the smell of spilled beer was part of the decor and the jukebox played ABBA on a loop. It was the kind of place where you could lose an afternoon or find a bad idea. Larry Dallas was already there, perched at the bar in a silk shirt unbuttoned to his navel. Larry was Jack's best friend, a used car salesman with the morals of a hungry shark and a heart that was occasionally in the right place. Tripper, the man, the myth, the cowboy, Larry roared, slapping Jack on the back. Furley told me everything. He thinks you've got a twin who could wrestle a grizzly. Why didn't you tell me you were holding out on the talent, pal? It was a one-time thing, Larry, Jack muttered, sliding into a booth next to Janet and Cindy. One time? Jack, that Austin guy is a goldmine. You could use him to pick up flight attendants at the airport. Howdy, ma'am. I'm lost in this big old city. Could you show me the way to your heart? Larry laughed, winking at a passing waitress. Janet sat stiffly, her hand wrapped around a glass of white wine. She felt out of place. Usually, she loved these nights out, the laughter and the familiar rhythm of their friendship. But tonight, she kept thinking about the way Jack had held Veronica on the sofa. She kept thinking about the fact that Jack was planning to leave. You're quiet, Jan, Jack said, leaning in. His shoulder brushed against hers, and for a second, the noise of the pub faded. Just tired, she lied. Busy day at the shop. Everyone wants lilies this week. Lilies represent rebirth, Jack said softly. Maybe that's what we all need. Before she could respond, a tall, well-dressed man approached their table. He looked like he belonged in a country club, not a pub. His eyes were fixed on Janet. Excuse me, the stranger said, his voice smooth and cultivated. I couldn't help but notice your arrangement of the ferns on your balcony this morning. I live in the building across the street. I'm David Vance. Janet blinked, surprised. The ferns? They're dying, Mr. Vance. Nonsense. They're struggling, and there is a great beauty in the struggle. Wood. Janet Wood. David Vance smiled, ignoring the rest of the table as if they were part of the furniture. Miss Wood, I would be honored if you would allow me to take you to dinner sometime, somewhere with a bit more ambiance than this. Jack felt a sudden, hot surge of protectiveness. He stood up, almost knocking over his beer. She's busy, pal. We're in the middle of a celebration. David Vance looked at Jack with a mild, bored curiosity. And you are? The younger brother? I'm the roommate, Jack snapped. And I'm the chef. So I know a lot about ambiance, and this place has plenty. David didn't lose his smile. He handed a small, embossed card to Janet. Think about it, Janet. A woman like you shouldn't spend all her nights in a place that smells of old floor wax. As David walked away, the table was silent. Larry whistled. Man, that guy has money written all over him. Janet, you're moving up in the world. Janet looked at the card, then at Jack. Jack's jaw was set, his eyes dark with a jealousy he didn't know how to explain. He seems nice, Cindy chirped, sensing the impending storm. He seems like a snob, Jack said, sliding back into the booth. Who notices ferns across a street? He's a voyeur. He was being polite, Jack, Janet said, her voice trembling slightly. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. I'm being protective. I don't need a protector. I'm a grown woman. Janet stood up, grabbing her purse. I'm going home. Enjoy your ambience, Jack. She walked out of the Regal Beagle, leaving Jack staring at his half-empty glass. Larry patted his arm. Tough break, buddy. But hey, at least you've still got Austin, right? Shut up, Larry, Jack whispered. Chapter 9. The Fragrance of Jealousy. The next morning, apartment 201 smelled of roses. Not just a few roses, but dozens of them. They were everywhere, on the coffee table, the kitchen counter, even the bathroom sink. David Vance had sent them to Janet's shop, and she had brought them home. Jack emerged from his room, rubbing his eyes, only to be hit with the overwhelming scent of a funeral parlor. What happened? Did someone die? David sent them, Janet said, humming as she trimmed the stems. She looked radiant in a sundress, her hair tied back with a silk ribbon. They're ostentatious, Jack grumbled, trying to find a space on the counter to make coffee. He's trying to buy you, Janet. He's being attentive, Jack. There's a difference. Jack watched her for a moment. He wanted to say something to tell her that he hated the roses, hated David Vance, and hated the way she looked when she talked about him. But the words felt like lead in his mouth. He was supposed to be the gay roommate. He was supposed to be the friend. If he showed his true feelings, the whole house of cards would come crashing down. I have my interview, Jack said, his voice flat. Janet paused, a rose in her hand. Right, the interview. Good luck, Jack. I mean it. Thanks. He walked out of the apartment, the smell of roses clinging to his clothes like a reproach. The interview at La Casa del Sol was a disaster from the start. The owner, a stern man named Señor Rodriguez, spoke a rapid-fire Spanish that made Jack's brain freeze. Tell me, Mr. Tripper, Rodriguez said in English, his eyes narrowing. Why should I recommend you for a cruise ship that caters to the elite of Madrid? Jack took a breath. He thought of Janet. He thought of David Vance and his embossed cards. He thought of the way Janet had looked at the roses. Because, Jack said, his voice suddenly steady, I understand the language of the kitchen. I know that a perfect sauce can say things that words can't. And I'm a man who isn't afraid of a challenge. Rodriguez stared at him for a long time. Then, he nodded slowly. You have passion, but you're Spanish. It is mucho lousy, as you say. I'm learning, Jack promised. We shall see. I will give you a trial night. This Friday, a VIP party. If you can handle the pressure, I will give you the recommendation. Jack walked out of the restaurant feeling like he had won the lottery and been sentenced to death at the same time. Friday was only 3 days away. When he got back to the apartment, the roses were still there, but Janet was gone. She had a date with David Vance. Jack sat in the darkened living room, the moonlight filtering through the blinds. He picked up the Spanish textbook.